Good morning. It's the first weekend of June. It's been relatively good weather recently. I think it's got up to like 20 degrees every day this week. Not going to be doing too much today. Have a marathon run next weekend, so mostly I think spending a day at the beach, although I'm going to walk up around the headland here. Might do a little bit of exploring. This is Carne Beach. Currently coming up for low tide. Say hello to the cows. So I have been this way before in a video a couple of months ago, but things have I think grown quite a bit since then. And of course we're like definitely out of spring and into summer. So the sun is a lot higher in the day. I think that always plays a huge part in how different everything looks. Because during like the winter and a bit into spring, while the sun is still relatively low in the sky, you know, things are never quite so bright. Feels like everything's a little less colourful, which in a way it like literally is, but at the same time it also appears even less colourful because it's not lit up quite so much. Speaking of the way things look, I did get my new glasses this week. I'm trying to get used to them. I can definitely see better, like when I'm looking straight ahead, I can see significantly better. It's really quite noticeable. But the problem I'm having is that I have quite a poor field of vision with these new glasses. Like a lot of what I can see, if it's not like within a small range of being directly ahead, then I'm having a bit of trouble with it being blurry. So seems likely I'll have to go back to the optician, see if there's any like adjustments that can be done or anything. Look back over across the beach. Port Scaffo over there. I was thinking of going around to St. Anthony Head, but I don't think I'm going to do that today. feel like perhaps I'll be a little bit cautious today. As we know, I seem to keep getting cramp when I go out. Or it seems to be like a 50-50 incidence that I get cramp. This morning I got cramp before I even got out of bed. It's just one of those moments where you wake up and immediately, like, your leg just seizes up, the muscles just gone completely tense, and it's very painful. But I realised what was happening very quickly, so I was able to stop it from being too bad. Though it does mean I'm going to be able to feel that for like the rest of the day already. And I've not really done anything yet. Hopefully it's not going to matter because I wasn't planning to do too much anyway. Looked a bit different last time I was here. Just going to go up to the top here, then go around to the other side. What I wanted to do today, ideally, was just do some like up and down hills practice. Currently walking uphill, but I wanted to do a little bit of running. So we'll see if I can do that on the other side, or I can be off the main footpath. Good view from up here. You can definitely tell the difference, like being up here and looking out with my new glasses compared to what it looks like with my old ones. Quite a nice day. I'm going to head just a bit further around. See a couple of boats out in the sea. The year really seems to be going by very quickly. Like, it feels like it's been hardly any time at all since I got a camera and started making videos. But it's not going to be that far off half a year soon. I don't think I would have pointed this out when I was here last time, but there are some like war things up here. For example, this bunker. Got a nice information board. The place itself is locked, but it says that they do some kind of tour. So this is where I wanted to walk around to. I think if I can go down this hill a bit and drop my bag somewhere just on the ground, then do a bit of going up and down the hill. Hoping that my left leg will take it, because I can still feel where it wanted to cramp this morning, and it's not the greatest of feelings, but I've had it much worse than what it was today. If I spend a bit of time here doing whatever it is I want to do, run up and down a few times or whatever, there should be a path somewhere at the top that cuts across like a car park and goes down to the other side of the headland, like where the little stream is. And then from there, I think there should be another path that goes off to the right that will lead like up around to Veryan Castle. So I was thinking if I try and find that route, I could go and see that, which would be nice. Haven't really walked up there before. We'll have to see. I don't have a map with me or anything, so it does rely on me finding the paths, but I don't think it should be any difficulty. Trying to look for the best spot to drop my stuff. This doesn't look like it. Probably want to be just down there where it's short grass. Nice little cove. Guess I can just like drop my stuff here. So I can run like fairly confidently over 20k on flat ground. I get the feeling I'll really struggle trying to go uphill it is much harder, but I guess doing it is like gonna be part of how I keep improving. So I need to do stuff like going up hills to build strength better in my legs. So I guess let's see if I can actually run uphill for any distance before I just die. Seems like hardly anything, but that feels like really difficult on the legs compared to running flat ground. It must be like, what, 100 meters? Like horizontal distance. Not too much vertical distance. But I could definitely feel that. So I have a tendency when I go to like these running events and that, do most of the running on flat ground, some downhill, usually walk a lot of the uphill stuff, which is what most people seem to do. I think that works well for not like tiring out your legs too much, because it's far easier to walk uphill than it is to run uphill. But like I've said, if I want to keep improving past where I am, I feel like this is the kind of thing I need to do to train my legs and start building more strength rather than just trying to do more distance. I think where I am right now, it's like I can comfortably do long distances when I feel like I'm working within my limits, like not trying to push too much. But I guess the point is I want to change what my limits are. Like, I guess doing that smuggler's way, which I probably keep saying that, but when I signed up for that race, which was like some point towards the end of last year, at that time I felt like that distance was probably beyond my capability. But I kind of worked on doing longer distances, and then I was able to do that race. Like, it wasn't an amazing time or anything, but I ran probably a significant distance over the course of that day, and I finished it. And that feels good. But it's like, I kind of want to sign up for it again next year, and I want, when I do it next year, for it to be like more than just I want to get to the finish, and I want to get to the finish in a bit less than 10 hours or whatever. But rather, like, I want to do it, and I want to feel that I've really been able to put loads of effort into it, if that makes sense. Like, I wouldn't expect to show up and compete for any of the top places or anything, but I kind of do want to be somewhat competent in running long distances. So I would have said that before as well. It's just something that I find appealing, and I think at the moment I'm kind of in the right place to set myself up for that. I just need to keep training, keep pushing it, and I will get there at some point. Like, I don't think by any means that it's going to be easy to go from being able to run half a marathon, like, on flat ground, to being like competent in long distance trail running. But I do think it is achievable. It's not like unreasonable for me to have that as some sort of personal goal. Anyway, probably enough talk. I better go again. I feel like I want to put the GoPro down somewhere so that I can just focus on running. And I just like put it on the ground. Will I be in the shots? Down here. This is the way I was thinking of going. Guess it's not so bad going in that direction, other than hopping that small bit of water. I think if I just commit to that, like, after my next race, if I just, I guess I'll write down like a running schedule or something, and then I think once I commit to it, it will become way easier to keep it up, because that's how most things work for me. I guess it's like people say motivation isn't the thing that drives you to do something. Like, motivation is the feeling that you get when you start doing something and you want to continue. Which is probably very poor paraphrasing of whatever it was I heard. I don't remember where I heard it from. But I certainly do think it's true, because I knew that I felt that way about things like long before I looked into what motivation actually is, if that makes sense. Like, I always used to feel once I start working on a project, I feel way more motivated to keep working on it than I do if I think that, like, I don't have enough motivation to start doing this. It's more the other way around. Once you take the first step, the rest of it becomes so much easier. Something interesting that happened recently. I kept meaning to talk about it, but I always forget when I'm recording a video. I was listening to some audiobook about like running form or something, but they said, like, if you stand on one leg with your hands on your hips, like, just try and do that for 30 seconds. So you do it, and it's perfectly easy on both legs. Like, you have absolutely no problem balancing. And then it said, now do it again, but close your eyes. And my first thought was like, surely that won't make any difference. But then I tried it, and it's surprising just how much more difficult it was to balance when you have your eyes closed compared to open. It was like, yeah, that's quite eye-opening. I'm sorry, that was probably a terrible pun. But it really was surprising. Like, you don't expect it to make such a huge difference, but it does. Missed it. One of those seagulls had something in its mouth, and the other two were chasing it. I think it dropped it. Must have dropped it in the sea. Should probably do another one. Up and down. I don't think I'll bother filming again. I've got a couple recorded. I don't think it's particularly interesting, me just running up and down the hill, but if I do like at least one more, then come back and get a drink, and then I think I'll go have a bit of a wander about. Let's go straight up to the rock there. done that like a few times now, going up that bank. I think I got it a lot better than when I tried to film it just now. Guess I could try again. The problem is like having such a low center of mass to try and get up. Because it's so steep, you need to use your hands as well as your feet. Like I kicked my hand a minute ago. Sounds kind of funny, I guess. Anyway, I think that's like my bit of running done for now. Gonna head back up the hill and explore a short amount. Then I'll be heading back to the beach. Get some lunch soon. I think running up hills is kind of weird. Because you start off and it's like, yeah, this is fine. And then after a little while it just suddenly hits you and then you're like, wait, this is using so much more energy than it should be. Like compared to flat ground anyway. On flat ground, once you get going, you just kind of keep going until you eventually run out of energy enough to keep yourself, or to keep your momentum up, which seems to be about 2 hours for me now. Then you kind of have to walk a bit and then run again and so on. But with hills it's just like, it just suddenly hits you, even though you start off feeling totally fine. So up to the footpath, wherever that goes. Assume it's just walking a straight line. Sheep. Sheep in the field. My Devaid and a Kai in Welsh. I think at this point my Welsh has far exceeded my Cornish. I mean, I still think there are a lot of things that I learned to say in Cornish that were useful that I still don't really know in Welsh, but kind of starting to get around that just by knowing more and more of the language. Thinking of like recording some videos of me learning. I don't know if that would be interesting at all. think in the last week I've I got to part of the course where you start to talk about I have this, etc. And there are a couple of different ways of saying that. And that's been a bit of a confusing one, I think. Try and think of an example. Like if you wanted to say, I guess the classic thing for Duolingo is that it seems to be obsessed with parsnips. I do like a parsnip myself. If you wanted to say like, I have parsnips, there would be two ways that I've learned to say it so far, which would be like my panas godavi, or you could say my geni panas. Really it means the same thing. It's just like a different order of the sentence, different sentence structure, I guess. But in terms of like a literal translation to English, it would be like saying parsnips with me. You say the same thing in Cornish. The Cornish language is structured that way as well. It's like, that was one of the things that I learned quite early in Cornish. Say I like something, or I like to do something, or whatever. That is also structured that way. It's like, say, you would say in Cornish, Dau Genevieve, which is like saying good with me, and then you say an object or a verb or whatever. I think it's really interesting to think about like the literal translations of different languages, but when you're just interested in learning to speak, that doesn't really like, it doesn't matter, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a different way of speaking. I suppose in my case it's because I grew up, my first exposure to learning a language really was learning French in school. And in school, at least for me, learning French, pretty much all of the time you were taught to literally translate things in your head as you were hearing them or reading them. And I don't really think that like is a good way of priming yourself to learn to speak a foreign language, because it's not always going to be the case that you can literally translate something into English and have it make sense. But I suppose it's because of that I still think about that when I'm learning languages. I suppose it gives me like some sort of anchor point for knowing how I want to say something. Like if I learn the association in my head with, I would say it this way in English, but in this other language I need to structure the sentence differently, then I might pull it out of my brain a bit quicker. Although in reality, I think learning Cornish, because it was entirely a spoken course, it was a lot easier because you didn't really have those reference points. Like you didn't look at words on a screen and see literal translations right in front of you. So most of the time you're just kind of hearing the sounds and thinking this sound corresponds to this part of whatever sentence I want to say. I think generally that's probably a better way of learning languages. But I do think like I would struggle to write much in Cornish. Like I'd effectively be somewhat illiterate at least. I do know what some of the words look like. I know generally what kind of combinations of letters correspond to which sounds. But I haven't done any proper learning of like writing in Cornish. I'm still thinking about whether I ought to sign up for like an actual course in Cornish, but I just don't know if it's worth it. I think at the moment I'm kind of happy learning Welsh and seeing where that goes. I've still got the little Cornish that I learned in the back of my mind. I suppose after long I will inevitably start to forget some of that. I was looking at the horizon just now and I was like, there's like this deep blue like haze right on the horizon. So that looks interesting. I realised it's just the chromatic aberration because of my glasses. That's something I'm trying to get used to because it's like a lot stronger than my old ones. If I'm any good at video editing, I would try to show what that looks like, but I'm not sure I know how to do that. What is chromatic aberration? I'm not able to show it. I should at least explain it. So when light passes through like a lens, for example, it's a good example because it's the relevant one. I'm wearing glasses, which is a lens in front of my eyeball. But different frequencies of light will refract at slightly different angles. Because I have quite a high prescription, my glasses are thicker, or they're at least made of a material with a greater refractive index, which means compared to material with a lower refractive index, the light bends more when it enters the material. But because different frequencies of light are affected differently, then it effectively like spreads out the frequencies of light as they come, in my case, into my eyes, or generally into a detector, which means that the further away I look from the center of my glasses, the more I'll see like red edging on one side and blue edging on another side of everything, because the light that's coming in is basically being spread out. I hope I have explained that sufficiently well. I don't know if I'm very effective at communicating physics. I never really taught physics. I did teach maths. I ran 1-hour sessions of mathematics for undergraduate students who were taking engineering courses. Whether they showed up or not, that's a separate matter. Generally I had, what was it? I'm trying to remember now because it was a while ago. I think either I had 2 separate classes or 3 separate classes. I'm not sure. I think generally 2 lots of the students usually showed up. The others not so much. But I usually always enjoyed that. Quite a few of my students were mature students as well. It was quite nice to work with like a range of ages. And of course it always feels good when, you know, students show up and you know which ones need the support, because either they look scared or they're really quiet. But when you can get people, like, bring them down from like the panic stage and start showing them in simple steps like how to work through whichever maths problems they have for that week, it always feels good once they actually come to understand it. And then when you leave them and they start like being able to apply that by themselves, like it can be quite noticeable, the difference in someone's confidence. I do quite miss teaching. I did once upon a time seriously consider going into teaching. Like on one hand, I think it would have been nice, and teaching would be a really fulfilling job, but on the other hand, I think actually being full-time teacher probably not quite as good of an experience as just doing it like a few hours a week. So this is, I believe, like a burial mound. There's some kind of gate. Close the effing gate. As you can see, it has not been properly closed. I will close it, however. So I don't know what like the etiquette is around walking on these things. Just a bench over there. Is that a bench? It looks like a bench to me. I think I could see that now that I've got new glasses. I'm like 99% sure that's a bench. Seems like I'm relatively high up actually. So should be continuing down out the other end of the field there. Then I am not so sure. I think I follow the road for a little bit and then there is another footpath somewhere around here for the Veryan castle, and I'll try and get a look at that before I go back to the beach. I suppose back on the topic of the thing I am standing on, the burial mound. Yeah, I suppose it's a Bronze Age artifact again, like the ones that I've shown before, Roseanne and Downs. Is that like a big ship over there? We do see some big ships around here sometimes. Falmouth is like beyond the headland over there, and you get some big ships come and dock over there, I think. I've definitely seen that before. Anyway, I was going to say I ought to look up a bit more of the history about these things, because then I'd be able to talk about it a bit, instead of showing up and then saying, well, I don't know too much about this. But I don't like to speak about things very much that I'm not confident in my knowledge on. So it's something I should do some reading about and then in future could actually be a bit more informative and not hit my head on a tree. Oh, I can only hope that no cars come while I'm down here, because it's stinging nettles both ways. I am not into that. Actually, to be fair, the right hand side doesn't look too bad. It's mostly on my left that there's stinging nettles. Is this where I'm going? Footpath to Carne, car park and beach via ring-arounds. Maybe. So I think over there in the corner, I think that's where I was thinking I was going to enter a path. Seems like this is basically going the same way. So I have to admit, I really have no idea how I am identifying this castle. I assume it's somewhat like Castle and Dinner that I went to before, where it's really just ancient remains that have been overgrown. I think this is probably it, what I'm standing on right now. This like sort of plateau that's just around me. So I knew there was like not particularly much to see, but I really, like, I don't know what it looks like when you're down on the ground. I think maybe if I walk down the hill a bit, maybe we'll start to see something a little more. I know I've said castle, but you know, I don't expect to actually see like a castle. It's more just ancient remains that have been overgrown. I don't suppose I'm going to see much more than this. I mean, from what I've seen, just looking on like Google, you see more of a structure from an aerial view, which again, like, that's what I'd expect. I do find it interesting nonetheless, like, to think that sometime long ago there might have been an actual structure there. Time erases everything eventually. Live as if today was the last day. No, I don't think. I don't think that's actually good advice, because, you know, thinking more critically, it's highly unlikely that today is the last day. And if you were to live as if today was the last day, that may lead to some self-destructive behaviors, which, because today is not the last day, will do you more harm than good in the long run. So it is better to live with more of a long-term view. I mean, I do think it's very important to get out and enjoy life while you're alive. It's like, that's what I feel like I'm doing today. Just the last like hour or so since I left from that little cove, just walking through the fields. It's incredibly peaceful and really enjoyable, and I'm really happy that I do things like this because it makes me feel good, and ultimately it's a healthy pursuit as well, because I'm out and I'm moving, I'm using my body. But I do think it's equally important that you try to make good choices for your long-term health. You know, you could argue that nobody knows when they're going to die, and therefore it may be pointless to try and live like expecting the best case scenario where you have a healthy and happy life into your old age, because that's not going to be the case for everyone. Because I did used to live like in the other way, like just do whatever you want because you don't know when your life's gonna end and you only get one life to live. But I was less happy overall than I am now when I try to have that longer term view. I don't know, it's weird to think about, and I should stop talking about this kind of stuff. Because I think it's really quite personal, like everybody's gonna have their own opinion on what's the best way to live and what makes them the most happy. Do we have any it's possibly an Iron Age fortified homestead. Nearby is Carne Beacon, one of the largest Bronze Age barrows in England. Yes, so it is a Bronze Age, like I said earlier. Anyway, that was a very convenient way to make me forget exactly where I was going with whatever I was talking about. Which is probably ultimately a good thing. Like, in the end it's up to you how you live your life and all that. I can only really speak to my personal experience. Tide is rapidly coming in now. It's probably a couple of hours since I was last filming, but had a quick run across the beach. I guess I should go back that way before the tide comes much further in. Avoid the seaweed, probably a good idea. to the point where I'm up to my waist and I really still don't know if I can go in. I think I totally forgot to do an outro yesterday. Just come up to this nice little viewpoint. A few rabbits, blackbirds, horse over there. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, then leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.